And we're live with Russell Gong, co-founder and head of product and brand at Cabinet Health. It's awesome to have you here, Russ.
Great to be here, John.
Yeah, let's do this thing. So Cabinet Health, you look at the brand, you're like, wow, this is really nice. But maybe you haven't heard of Cabinet Health before. So what is it that you guys do best?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Cabinet Health is an environmental sustainability healthcare company, and we focus on improving customers' relationships with their care, as well as their medicine and their environment. And so today we sell 30 over-the-counter medicines and supplements sold in lifestyle kits, such as moving to your home or traveling. And then later this summer, we're launching the first compostable medicine model in the world. And so that's what we're focused on.
And how did that become a focus? What is the story that led Cabinet Health to existing?
Yeah, I mean, as a founder, there's never like a apple drop from the tree moment.
Yeah.
I think, maybe starting with the problem that we see, which is quite large. It's an industry problem, a consumer and environmental problem. But to keep it simple for me, I call them the 3 Ps, which is pills, prices, and plastic. And Cabinet's mission is to improve our relationship with all 3 of those. To dig in a little bit further, starting with pills, it's our belief, unlike a lot of the experiences that we get in the United States, that healthcare is not just about pills. Today's experience, if you go to a pharmacy or talk to a doctor, is really transactional. It's confusing. All these names that, frankly, no one really knows unless you have or you're paying attention in chemistry class. And that being said, it's the most common touch point that Americans have with the US healthcare system. We have 2.9 billion transactions every single year in just pharmacies alone. And that is a missed opportunity for care. And so the first one for me is, how do we improve our relationship and understanding of pills? The second is pricing, that because we've created sort of this retail transactional experience when it comes to our health, we often overspend and underprepare for our medicine. So the average American household often unknowingly spends $450 every single year on over-the-counter medicine alone.
Wow.
This was pre-COVID. Now that's much higher, when reality is we only consume 47% of that medicine until it's expired. And I know before I started Cabinet, my medicine cabinet was a disaster, and you can kind of maybe resonate with that if you look back in your own medicine cabinet. And really the third one, which is most important to me, is about plastic. That the pharmaceutical industry creates 194 billion bottles of single-use plastic every single year, and only 1% to 2% of those are recycled, and the rest goes into oceans and landfills. And it is my belief and my co-founder's belief that there should not be a healthcare company in existence that doesn't also address the environment, as they're both inextricably linked. So really, to your point on how did this get started, it was this macro understanding of pills, prices, and plastic, and a combination of my founder, my team, and our customers building the first compostable medicine system.
Nice. So you and your co-founder, how do you guys know each other, and how did you guys come together? What was the first product?
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that you used to sell on Amazon, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
We go way back. To share about me prior to Cabinet, my background wasn't in startups. It's not in brand and marketing. It was really about social enterprises. I worked about 10 years in building, identifying and scaling social enterprises, companies like small healthcare companies in Central America, post-conflict banks in Eastern Europe. And Achel and I met on a road trip in Bosnia. We were working on building youth banks in Eastern Europe to spark some of the recovery post-Civil War. And we're just kind of on this bumpy road, and started to talk about more broadly, like, what are values that we believe in when it comes to building in general? What are things that we see missing in the world in terms of businesses? And that was about 10 plus years ago. His background is he's a 3rd-generation pharmaceutical entrepreneur. So his grandfather built one of the first acetaminophen manufacturing operations, which is the active ingredient for Tylenol or Dayquil built one of the first operations in India. And that created a value chain of manufacturing to medicine makers to medicine transporters to ultimately like providing medicines at scale to the world. And really, as now an adopted son of the family, it's the next iteration of that. And so, we came across on a road trip, but really the impetus of the company was connecting Achel, which is 3 generations of medicine making, to really my background on thinking of social issues and businesses differently.
Super cool. So you guys are on this trip, start talking about your values. You learn about his family history, and was the spark or the seedling of an idea born on that trip, or did you guys come back and continue jamming and then I love getting deeper into the story and how it all came together, because now you guys are, just to fast forward, you guys are a venture-backed company, and are now have had some level of product market fit and are getting now into the more environmental side, which I know we'll dive into as well.
Yeah. So on the impetus, I mean, I think a lot of founders will say like, yeah, when we ran into the store and like, boom, there it was. Like, I don't believe half of the stories. For me and Phil, we were hanging out, very close friends. It was a bit of like, I love you, man. I love you too. We'll figure it out. And then we kept working on a variety of different things. And, there was a period of my life where while I was working as a program director for a social innovation program, I was missing something. I ended up taking a pause in the private sector and enlisted in the US Army for interest to like understand more frontline, how do I support in things like natural disasters and others. And that was when Achel and I just had chances to sort of breathe in our own worlds. Like very quickly after that, as I returned, was like, let's build something right away. And it was in the world where really 2 years prior to COVID, we started to see some of the things that I mentioned really breaking at the seams. Looking at the environmental issues of plastic and more broadly to the cracks in the healthcare system, to a market opportunity in bringing, starting with over-the-counter medicines and supplements to market. And so actually, John, we're not venture backed. We've got some incredible angel investors and smaller boutique VCs, SoGal, Global Impact Fund, naming a few. But really, we bootstrapped the company with that idea, starting with an Amazon, revenue model that then fueled the rest of our R&D for what this summer will be the big sustainability launch that's taken us 2 years for development.
Wow. And then you guys are mostly direct to consumer right now, and then also are working with some employers and distributing through some alternative channels today.
That's right. And the future product, which is
let's look at it.
Fun to kind of play with, and I can share my screen too. But right now, we started off really in marketplaces. We then stood up our direct to consumer channel, and really never had an opportunity to launch. Pre-COVID, we just had our first MVP, like medicine kits. And COVID hit, and our priorities focused on serving people that really needed high quality cold and flu medicine, et cetera, and supporting frontline workers. Business has reached where it is today. And then, in terms of those sales channels, that also started to include businesses, some modest retail. When it comes to our future product, which to share with you, if it's interesting, is made out of a glass bottle for its recyclability. It's got a color-coded cap. And what we've built is a fully compostable pouch that you can use for refills anytime that you're out, whether that's supplements or your over-the-counter medicines or other, so that when you buy it, you just peel the top, pour it in, and then in order to transfer all the information of the product, we've created what we call our token, which has full drug facts, a QR code in the back so that you can point back to cap.com and get actual virtual care services that when WebMD fails you. And it's got a magnetized cap that allows you to track that on, and then they're stackable for a variety of different medicine styles.
Amazing. So double tapping, double clicking for a sec into, higher quality, over the counter prescription drugs, or not prescription, sorry, over the counter drugs. What does that really mean? Does it mean that they're free of dyes? Does it mean that they're free of fillers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good question. And it's one that those that are in the medicine community and industry really understand is actually a problem. And I think the first thing is, I don't want our brand to ever be fear mongering, but the reality is that all medicine is not created equal. Today in the United States, there are 3 drug recalls every single day. It's closer to 5 now because of stressed supply chains. And these are for things like medicines, whether that's over the counter or prescription, medicines that you would very much want to have confidence in, things like your typical name brands. Those drug recalls are accounted for carcinogens, additional products that don't actually dissolve as fast as they should. And there is an issue with sort of the quality approach. So currently how medicines are quality assured is they use the FDA, which is a random sampling that really checks the facilities of the medicine making, not the actual pills. So when you go to a pharmacy, that product itself has not been FDA checked. The factory has. So a metaphor there might be, it's like checking the baker, not the bread that you end up eating. So what we've done is we've implemented what we call batch level quality testing, so that every single product before the consumer even puts it into their body has been batch level certified to be free of allergens like gluten and others, free of carcinogens, and actually performs at the properties that it should. And while for and that's very unique. We're the first over-the-counter brand to do that. And so what we mean by quality there is, for many consumers, transparency, but for the actual raw material, it's the highest quality you can get in the market.
Got it. And then where are you guys actually buying the chemicals inside that are doing the things like relieving your headache or pain and, clearing up your allergies and sinuses? Where does that stuff come from?
Yeah. So that's all family. So as I mentioned with my co-founder, there's really 55 years of medicine making. So we work with family manufacturers that are highest quality in the world. A lot of them are based out of India, and then we bring them into the United States, where we do quality testing in combination of New York and a lab out of Yale, and then we bring them to consumers from there.
Do you know how his family ended up getting into that market and space? Is there any fun stories around that? I know you're now an adopted son.
Yeah, I 100%. I mean, it's an amazing family. One, I think from a vision standpoint, it really started similar to ours story in the sense of blending traditional medicine making with just more modern techniques, but just fast, like rewind 55 years ago. So Achel's grandfather was a chemical engineer and who was educated in Michigan, and really saw the potential of a particular active ingredient that is the active ingredient for really relieving significant amounts of ailments in the world of health. The story is focused on grabbing those techniques that are really front end leaning, and then bringing that back into India, where he envisioned what would this raw ingredient manufacturing look like, but then also brought some of the ethics to create ethical wages, ethical workers, ethical working spaces. And that was really the start. And so from us, we go back and forth to India very frequently, less so now, but as soon as you get there, it's family. I think we often look at pharmaceutical chains or medicine making as like this industrial monster, when reality there's like a lot of heart, there's a lot of people to it. And that's for over-the-counter medicine, but also for more natural products as well.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because especially people that maybe lean towards natural, holistic, or functional medicine might want to completely, get rid of things that are like this, like maybe bigger pharmaceutical over-the-counter drugs, but even in moderation, sometimes you're facing things on an individual level, whether it's a headache or your allergies, where you kind of need something to relieve that pressure, that tension, and having a cleaner option that's more sustainable, that's more transparent. It makes a lot of sense. As you guys think about all the different places that you can go with this as a company, there's a lot happening in terms of supplements, personalized supplements, a lot of direct to consumer players there. And then we're also seeing the rise of telehealth with things that are actually need to be prescribed, being prescribed by a practitioner in a virtual environment, and then being shipped to you. And then, as you guys think about your longer term vision, I love that you guys have emphasized and prioritized sustainability from the get-go. Where are you guys going to go from here in terms of, as you think about the vision? And
I mean, it's such an interesting space to be in a post-COVID world. And what do we look at? What is healthy and what is not? And what do we need to feel better? Not just in terms of resolving a condition, but to create more health for you and your loved ones. And so, to answer that question directly, Cabinet is a healthcare company, and we have over-the-counter and supplements today. Our goal is that we're providing that go-to place to get all of those remedies in sustainable packaging with an ethical B Corp, and additionally with personalized care assigned with that. And so what that means this summer is we'll launch basic essentials kits that have a combination of what we call the spectrum of health, combination of nutraceuticals and supplements to more pharmaceutical remedies, plus virtual care services to be able to speak to somebody when WebMD fails you and a doctor visit is too much. Just having that companion that's there for you is where we're starting. And from there, really the roadmap for the product goes in a combination of ways, either through the conditions that we want to be able to support. So helping customers who have chronic allergies or chronic sleep issues, not just stopping with their medicine, but also pointing them to specialists. Second is a roadmap that focuses on life moments. So how do we serve, my wife is pregnant and I'm super pumped. I'm going to be a new dad.
Congratulations.
And it's a whole new shopping list of things. And then as soon as we have my beautiful boy, it's going to be a whole new shopping list. And how do we create cabinets so that those life moments are served, those moments of anxiety are reduced, and those moments of care, you're not left looking around for someone to help you out. And so really, as we look at life moments, Cabinet will be there every step of the way. And then third and finally is the innovation side of the packaging. So we have a design patent on our compostable packaging and refillable system. We've got our goal is not just to be the one and only guarded group. We want to have larger pharmaceutical companies and larger medicine companies adopt the sustainable packaging so that we can meaningfully address the issues of pills, prices, and plastic.
And that was really helpful in terms of understanding vision and where you guys are going from a product perspective. As you think about your go-to-market today and meeting your consumer, what are you got? Like, what are the biggest opportunities in terms of like what's working in terms of meeting a consumer, especially in a world where they are bombarded by so many different products and pills and supplements, and then on the flip side of that, like what are the biggest challenges? Like, what are you guys getting right today, and then what are the biggest things that get in your way that you guys are trying to navigate as you meet your people?
Yeah, there's the way that we look at our go-to-market is in three areas of quality, sustainability, and personalized care. And so our acquisition channels are aligned to those three core focuses. So within the quality community, as you just described, it requires a little bit more education, requires a little higher touch to unpack sort of the fact that there's 3 to 5 drug recalls. And so we're working through a combination of communities that care about that. Ours is the first gluten-free medicine brand in the market. So
Mm.
we go through our celiac influencers, our community groups, acquisition channels that are much more content focused and sort of network based.
Mm.
We look at sustainability. Our product and packaging is the first to market as the most as a sustainable system. So within that, considering much more direct response marketing channels that truly just get the word out for those that care about the environment, of which we're seeing that trend being significant. And then the last one is personalized care, that not everyone wants to get the extra touch, but there are existing channels of people who want virtual care services that we're also looking to tack into. And so basically that answers an omni-channel world. Like there is no world where we live in the one time, direct response and you ride it to the sunset in paid social or other. Our goal and the way that we want to present the company is omni-channel. What's working, what's been challenging, I think, is a lot of things. There is a lot of as a founder yourself, and there's so many things that you dream about. There's so many things that you have working, and people only have time for like the first most important thing. I think that's always the biggest challenge for me, is like we see so clearly the world that we want to create and the industry that we want to create. And it's just a question of like, what is that hi, how are you convo?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's like snappy copy and snappy image. And I think that, that's sort of the struggle I have, which is like, how do you just make sure you have patience? And then, obviously that has budget implication and creative implication. But, as we look at like really I think more traditional channels of like markets, they're always solvable. It's just a matter of like, can you get your passion out fast enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I love having conversations like these, because
Yeah.
there's so much personality, and there's stories, and there's humans behind these brands. And sometimes with the consumer, you only have so much time in order to
Yeah.
get them to like you or give you a chance. So yeah, hopefully more and more people can kind of learn the longer version, and maybe higher quality longer version, and then from there making their buying decisions. Russ, I'd love to get a little deeper into your background and your mental models, how you think about things. And a lot of that has to do, sometimes I focus on prioritization and just focus. So are there any things that you do or you've changed over the last few years as you've jumped into this seat of being a founder, in order to be more diligent with your time and to really then be able to give the things that matter your full attention and energy?
Yeah. I mean, I love that question. I think a lot of founders that are doing big things are always wrestling with that. And then your company changes, you change, and then you each have to change that as well. I guess like from things that come to mind, and let me know if this answers the question. Like the biggest thing for me right now is I have an amazing team. Like our broader team, from being able to say, hey, we need to be vulnerable with each other. Like things are tough, things are tiring. And also be like, hey, let's link arms and just cruise through this sort of milestone. I think one mental model is like, how do we create white space and time to listen in a virtual working world? Stacy, my VP of Ops, is like phenomenal at that, and then we have where we just have time to talk and think. I think another one that I've just been focusing much more on is sleep, and thinking through like what is that perfect condition of sleep that allows that next day to be like really where you want it to be. Bit of a tactical one, but like I even got to the degrees of temperature. Like I need 70 degrees of temperature. I have to have this like specific sleep mask, and then I'm ready to rock.
Which sleep mask is that?
I got to remember the name, but I will
Yeah,
send it to you. It's super comfortable.
great. Yeah.
But then the last one for me that's most important is my wife. I mean, I
Mm.
think, having that balance of how much do you bring into your personal relationships so that they feel like they're part of that journey, but also not so much that it ruins like the larger perspective of your partnership. And like she's been masterful at like knowing like when to listen versus when to support. And then, effectively my second partner, my co-founder, like we call each other about everything. He's at a wedding right now. Like we're talking about his best man speech. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question. I mean, those are just like top of mind things, John, but
No,
like,
I love that. I was gonna ask, what's the secret to your vibe? Because you have a very, you're very approachable.
thanks, dude.
It's really nice to talk to you, and just get good energy when I chat with you. Even the first time when I didn't get to see your face just over a call, and it sounds like a lot of that has to do with your relationships and your wife, and then your work wife, which is what I call my best friend,
Yeah,
who's also my co-founder.
I think, and I don't know what vibe I have, but I do know that what is extremely constant in my mind is like a very mission driven, like we've got a lot to fix in the healthcare space.
Hmm.
And my team and I are in the position where we can truly introduce a new packaging that eliminates plastic from medicine, period. We can truly introduce a way that changes consumers' behavior in their relationship with medicine and health.
Hmm.
And we can truly build a brand that people believe in that starts to unpack quality, not just in your pills, as we mentioned, but in your health. And I think, what you're doing with JOON is phenomenal because it opens up and curates so many of those experiences that frankly people are doing their best to try to find. So yeah, that's what for me, that's my vibe. And I see like, sorry, we're getting a big gushy, but like on this podcast, like I feel like you're going to be a huge player in that. And there are people who move that mission forward. And there are people who don't. And my vibe is just trying to find as many of those that do.
Amazing. And then I guess something I always like to think about in people's journey is, did that mission always live inside of you, or was there a certain point within your life journey that, like, whether it was an inflection point, a low point, or something where that also really started to solidify? Like, something I get really curious about is like, who are you at your core versus like what attributes did you strive to hone in over the course of your trajectory?
I think in terms of the mission for environmental sustainability, those social issues change as the world changes. And right now that's the biggest one for I think everybody. And so like, was I always an environmental sustainable person? To be honest, probably not, but very much attuned to things that are productive at a larger level and those that are not. My parents, my mom's from Singapore, my dad's fourth generation from California, and they were. My dad was a foreign service officer for the U.S. and my mother was a journalist for Singapore. And I can remember like every dinner when we would move around a lot and we traveled, but every dinner time, like we would have like very why driven questions. There would be like, "Hey, Rusty, like, why do you think that was? Like, why did that interaction feel that way? And where can we make that better?" And I really love that they did that because it created this sense of like questioning and also, I think subconsciously, this sense of efficacy that the reason they were asking me why is that there is an assumption that it can be changed. And not just an understanding. It's just like, that's why it is. It was like a reason of why in order for it to be better. And I think that for me, that's whenever I strayed away from that, my parents would let me have it. But I look at, the way that my team looks at what we're building and And there is a lot of why. And I think that's
Mm,
where brands really come in, and also brands lose their way is when they
mm.
stop asking that and they stop delivering what they think is the right answer for whatever reason. Um, so, directly to your question, John, sorry, I don't think
No, that
there
was
were
beautiful.
trigger moments. Like, I think there's a lot of like macro ones that just contributed to that broader thought.
Uh, that was really beautifully said. Thank you. And I promise done getting super deep.
No,
But I
dude.
guess, being more environmentally sustainable in terms of your day to day is becoming more and more a part of the conversation, which is
Yeah.
awesome. And then, obviously there's people like yourself who are doing stuff in terms of like changing little things that people do or buy every day in order to move towards a more sustainable, zero waste type world.
Mm.
For others that are trying to make lifestyle decisions or make an impact in terms of how they're living to be more aligned with the planet, are there other things that you think that they should read or think about or do in order to kind of put their money where their mouth is and
Yeah.
walk the talk, in addition to buying something like a cabinet or supporting more sustainable brands?
Yeah. Huge question, right? And a number of areas that are important, which is, little things, industry innovations, and then like what do we read and learn? I think the first one is I just recognize that like the way that you break that down is so perfect, right? There are ways that people, you know, well, taking a step back, like I feel all of us right now feel like we don't have control in our lives. Like there's so much going on that like everything that we do, it seems like such a fight. It seems like such an existential, impossible battle.
Mm.
But I really hope that people don't feel like that for much longer and that they can make these little decisions that do help. I think that it's the responsibility of companies to guide those decisions and start pushing industry to make sure that people can continually live their lives. In terms of like the books that like I've really turned to and the literature that I've really turned to, I think that there's a lot to be learned around cradle to cradle design. I think there's a lot to be learned in the material sciences,
Mm.
particularly as it comes to plastics compostability versus recyclability. I think that the larger social sector and Stanford Social Innovation Review has more like philosophical things that think through what is the relationship with environmental sustainability and uh, racial equality and social income inequality, and the reality
Mm.
is intricately connected. So I would stress for consumers and listeners to, once they feel like they are comfortable with like their perspective on what sustainability is and their own purchases, that they start to understand that these social issues don't exist in silos and that they're
Mm.
actually very interconnected. And I think that opens up to a variety of literature that just go one topic at a time. Um, for cabinet, the way that we're looking at our sustainability is really from a value chain perspective, which I also encourage people as consumers to think about, which is we start with our physical product that consumers really focus on and helps us reach a level of scale. And then we begin to work back that value chain, starting from we've carbon offset ship products to how do we reduce the ancillary plastic waste, to then getting to the means of manufacturing. And as I mentioned earlier, we really are vertically integrated with our supply chain. So our goal is we're working through all of that.
And I know you have to run in a minute. The last question I have for you, Russ, is there anything that you personally do or have changed in terms of how you live in order to align yourself more with your like company mission? It's your personal mission as well. Is there like, do you buy different types of clothing? Do you not buy clothing at all? Is there anything in particular that I can take away and maybe people listening can take away or get inspiration from?
Yeah, well, one, I'm again going back to my partner. She is an incredible guiding person around everything that we do in the house, and also really good at keeping me honest. I think like recycling, compostability being one of them. There's no one thing that I do.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I do that's sustainable, that isn't intentionally because it's sustainable, is I just never buy new clothes, but that's more of like being, being, being a guy without any style. I don't really buy new things unless it really matters. Um, I, I would say that like I'm intimately more connected on just like what do I purchase or not, but no one thing.
What's your partner's name? We're gonna have her on here.
There, it's perfect. Yeah, her name's Allie.
Okay, fine, perfect. She's the founder of your firstborn, so she could be
That's
on the
right.
family
Yeah,
series.
and CEO, president. Yeah.
Russ, this has been so much fun. I'm excited to continue it. I look forward to meeting you in person. Thanks for sharing what Cabinet Health is up to. Thanks for sharing your personal story and perspectives, and looking forward to doing this again.
Absolutely, John. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Thank you, man. Bye.